Hey guys, how are we today? Hoping everyone had a great Christmas and is looking forward to doing something fancy on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. But obviously, the crypto market never sleeps, so whilst you were probably drinking, partying, whatever, Bitcoin has decided it wants to close the month pretty much where it opened. And I'm really looking forward to seeing green close. We're only around 200 and something dollars off. So if we can move up just a little bit more in the next few days, it would mean we're tracking very closely to what happened in the 2021 cycle, where we had our all-time high, a red close, and you can see we had that here, and we followed that up with 3 red months on the BX Trender, but that third month actually ended up closing higher than it opened. Now, I know this cycle isn't exactly the same because our all-time high month was light green in 2021, but so that does suggest we could potentially, depending on how you look at this, you could argue that these 2 down months are here, and we could potentially close this month down. So if we get slapped back down in the next few days, where the following month would be this green month here, and we'd follow that up with another up month as a bit of a relief rally. So this monthly close is very important because it will tell us whether we're tracking exactly like 2021 or slightly different. If we can close above 90,200-ish, it would give me good hope that next month would be a nice up month. And so if we close green, I'd say we're about here, and next month will be up, but the following month will probably slap us back down. Whilst if this month closes down, so if we get slapped back down in the next few days, I would think that we would actually end up with 2 months up, if that makes sense. So, having a look at the weekly time frame, you can see we are closing light red for multiple weeks on the weekly BX Trender. I made a video the week before saying we had a light red close, and we got another one last week. And so far, we're looking very good. But we also looked pretty good the last few weeks, but we've just had really long wicks up and no real sustainable price action to the upside. But being a holiday period, we can take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Having a look at last cycle, you can see we had our light red closes. So again, this week is super, super important. If we get slapped back down, we could potentially come in for a higher low towards the range lows, which in this case would mean that we could potentially come down to, maybe 85,000, 86,000 for a bit of a low sweep, or we could actually take out this low and come down to, maybe 81, 82,000. But if we ignore the BX Trender, it does look like we've already put in a weekly higher low. So, based off of that analysis, I am thinking we're not here, we're more likely here, where this week is more likely to be an up week and potentially get us a green close. So we'll potentially see another 2 up weeks before we start to roll over again, which would line us up very well with the analysis that Jason and Michael have been talking about over on their YouTube videos about Q1 and the seasonal cycles, where we potentially see a top around late January, early mid-February, and roll over again. So I love it when multiple layers of analysis come together to the same conclusion. Coming over to the daily time frame, you can see we are on track to close above the 50-day TMA for the first time since the end of October. Now, what I'm looking for is 3 daily closes above the 50 TMA to confirm a trend shift. Now you can see here we had 1, 2, but that third close was under and we obviously got slapped back down. Here we could not even get a single close, and obviously the rest is history. So this week is shaping up to be a very, very important week for Bitcoin and crypto, and this Elliott wave count is obviously incredibly invalidated after we did not see any continuation from around 94,000 and got slapped back down. So I will be redoing this and coming back to it in a future video, potentially in the middle or towards the end of this week, depending on how interesting price action gets. And speaking of price action, coming over to forexfactory.com, you can see we've got the FOMC meeting minutes at 5 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, UTC plus 10 on Wednesday. So that's going to be Thursday afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the US or Europe. So that is obviously going to shake up the markets a bit. And we've got unemployment claims. Obviously 11:30 p.m. on Wednesday for me, which is going to be a Wednesday morning announcement for the US and Europe. So definitely keep your eyes peeled, and if you come to Forex Factory yourself, you can obviously set it up for your own time zone. And yeah, that's probably going to shake up the markets, and considering this is Monday and that is happening on Wednesdays, I do think whether we get those 3 daily closes above the 50-day TMA is going to be influenced significantly by the economic data and obviously what the Fed says. Having a look at the 4-hour chart, you can see I've got this Wyckoff range line drawn at $88,180. Now, I haven't actually done all the markups for Wyckoff. I've kind of just been using trend lines here. But you can see this being our change of character swing top is a very significant level, because that was pretty much the end of this massive downtrend since roughly 116 and 117k when we started the downtrend on the daily time frame with that 50 TMA weakness. So you can see we've been flirting with that level pretty much throughout the entire Christmas holiday period, and it does look like we are seeing a bit of a gotcha bar, as Michael likes to call it. When everyone here is potentially fearful of lower prices, you get this sudden pump, and everyone who wants to buy at a discount doesn't get that chance to buy at a discount, so hopefully they FOMO in at higher prices and potentially push us up towards the $97,000 level. Now, Michael, I think, was talking about 96,000 in some of his last YouTube videos, being an important 50% level, but I could be wrong. But on my chart, I've got 97,000-ish marked up as quite a significant level. On the 1-hour chart, you can see we are now 8 bars up in this swing, so provided we can hold above these previous tops here, around 89,500, we would reset that swing count if we just come down to, 89.8 or a bit lower, so we're only around, 0.1% off, something not much. On the 15-minute chart, you can see we ended up with 13 bars up in this swing direction. And what I really like is we got some really nice consolidation and higher lows above this pink trend line before we got this reactionary move up. And this pink trend line being the downtrend since the all-time high. So again, a very significant trend line that we have now broken above. So price action in the next few hours and 2 or 3 days is obviously going to be very important, with the USDT dominance coming in and approaching the 50-day TMA from the overside. And as we all know, when the 50 TMA is approached from the overside, we should expect support to come in. Now, what I do like is we've put in a daily lower high on the USDT dominance, which corresponds to a Bitcoin, I guess you could argue, weekly higher low. So that is obviously very positive. And if we have a look at the BX Trender and Stochastic RSI, you can see where we are entering that oversold area. So a little bit of a bounce could potentially be incoming, and hopefully for Bitcoin that means just, a little bit of a retracement, maybe like 1% or so, because I would really like to see those 3 daily closes above the 50-day TMA, and there's really not much give. So hopefully, if the USDT dominance does come in for a bit of a, I guess you could say, dead cat bounce, we just see some of those trashy altcoins get wiped instead. Now, on the weekly time frame, you can see our buying pressure on the USDT dominance is coming out, and that stochastic RSI is rolling over. So that is definitely on the positive side. And you can see Solana has closed a higher low on the weekly BX Trender. XRP has not, but this week is looking good. Ethereum struggling below the 50% level and the 50-week TMA, but we are getting some nice signs on the weekly BX Trender. DOT, we've seen a nice green move up, but I would really like to see price action get above that 50-day TMA. And this entire cycle, it feels like DOT has put in some better shorts than longs. So take it at face value. It feels like every long has been really short-lived. You get those 2 or 3 big bars up, but, with the exception of the Trump election pump, but every other time, the shorts ended up being a lot more profitable. Now, I may make a future video going over the 50 TMA method on altcoins, because it's a bit harder to use on altcoins than Bitcoin, but I won't ramble too long here. Same on ADA, would really like to see some price action above the 50-day TMA. The DXY, you can see this lovely double top underneath the 50% level. We got these dark red weekly closes on the BX Trender. CRO, again, really struggling below the 50-day TMA. BNB, we've sold off really hard on the weekly BX Trender, but we are holding the weekly 50 TMA, which is alright. SUI does look like it is on the verge of a trend shift. So if Bitcoin manages to put in a nice move this week, SUI, especially with the decreasing selling pressure on the weekly BX Trender and this potential consolidation here, could put in, a 50% move to retest the breakdown zone. So who knows? Is that 50%? No, that's a 100% move. So SUI is definitely one to watch. Obviously, the US dollar has been melting off against the Australian dollar. And Mantle also looks like it is potentially consolidating. Now, I was very hopeful it would go on a nice move, potentially leading Bitcoin, but it looks like this nice move above the 50-day TMA was a bit of a fake out. Anyways, that pretty much sums up my video for today. If we have a look at the Bitcoin FOMO Finder, you can see we are back in balanced after sitting in uncertainty and panic for quite a while. So hopefully we do start seeing some nice moves up, especially with the sentiment having been in extreme fear or barely getting out of extreme fear for so long. One thing I don't like is the daily exchange volume making new lows for the past 12 months. Now, if I switch it to all time, you can see we're pretty much testing the lows of 2024. So for some bullish hopium, maybe, just maybe, we come in for a 4th time breakout of this, 100 billion level, and we get some crazy news from Trump, Elon, or whatever, and we hold this $28 billion low and go on a huge run. Again, having a look at CoinGlass, our max pain levels, Bitcoin on the daily and the monthly all look like $91,000 being a potential nice level to liquidate some shorts. We are 2% out of balance, long-short ratio, but with the low liquidations and the fairly low 24-hour volume, even though it's ticked up a bit, I would take that with a bit of a pinch of salt. But if we do get slapped back down, 86,300 or 88,000 is obviously your levels to watch, and hopefully that does not happen and we get some really nice bullish continuation from here. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Goodbye.